President Cyril Ramaphosa has given the green light to the memorandum of agreement between Ministers of Electricity and Public Enterprises. The agreement clarifies responsibilities between Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa and Pravin Gordhan, the Public Enterprises Minister. And according to the memorandum, Ramokgopa will focus on all aspects of the power crisis and the work of the National Energy Crisis Committee, among other tasks. Meanwhile, Gordhan is expected to support and assist the Electricity Minister in his interactions with the board. We speak to civil engineer from Truth and Energy, Hügo Kruger, about this development. Hügo, thank you very much for your time this morning. Is this something unusual?
Good morning to you, and thank you for having me. I find the whole setup quite unusual, to be honest with you. We have three ministers who is Eskom's boss at this stage. You've got Minister Mantashe's Department of Minerals and Energy. We have the Minister of Electricity, whose portfolio has never been well defined. He's acting like the CEO of Eskom. He's not supposed to give press conferences and set diesel bonuses. And then we have Minister of Public Enterprises, whose mandate, as far as I can tell, is to push ahead with the unbundling of Eskom. And now basically the two out of the three have come together. But in my view, neither of the two should exist. All of this should belong to the Minister of Energy, because Minister of Energy sets policy, but he cannot choose the board. That's been chosen by Public Enterprises. So you have an entire mess of a legal structure. And when you have that mess at the top, we should not be surprised that there's load shedding at the bottom.
Because you will go onto the South African government website and you take a look at this memorandum. So it says, or it reads, the MOU outlines the roles and responsibilities of the Minister of Electricity as follows. As you rightfully mentioned, exercise authority over the Eskom board and management on ending load shedding and ensure that the Energy Action Plan is implemented without delay. When it comes to the Public Enterprises Minister, it reads, this is just but one bullet point for both of them. We'll get into the rest in a few moments. Support and assist the Minister of Electricity in his interactions with the board by incorporating the responsibilities of the Minister of Electricity listed in the MOU in the execution of his role as shareholder, in line with Eskom shareholder compact, and inserting obligations of the board in this regard into the board performance evaluation framework. Break it down for us laymen and women. What does this mean?
Well, as far as I can understand, okay, if I read through the lines, okay, the board will now fall under Minister of Electricity. Now, if you recall in the past, we used to have Minister of Energy and Minister of Minerals, okay. It seems to me they're going 180 degrees back to what we had. So they're basically transferring all that responsibility. But I see major problems with that already, because as far as I know, those two departments have been merged, staff moved into the same building, they've all fallen on the Minister of Minerals and Energy, and now they're trying to separate them again. Is this a wise thing to do in a time of crisis? I don't know. And then they talk about the Energy Action Plan. Now, there's been many Energy Action Plans in the past, and we still have the same stage of load shedding. So one has to question if these plans mean anything.
Absolutely, because the MOU on the Public Enterprises Minister, at least one of the bullet points is lay the basis for the restructuring of Eskom arising from the Electricity Regulation Act Amendment Bill. And for the Electricity Minister, it reads, ensure that matters dealing with transmission are dealt with, including the issuing of the requests for proposals and or requests for information for financing of new transmission lines. Again, what does this mean?
Well, this means that the minister is going to get involved, they're already involved, into the planning of Eskom, the internal operations of Eskom. You see, this is the big debate. They're trying to push the unbundling of Eskom, which they want to move Eskom into transmission, distribution and supply. Now, I went to the Parliament Portfolio Committee and I opposed this entire thing, along with members of Truth and Energy. Why? Because no country that has never solved their safety or security of supply, solved load shedding basically, has successfully unbundled a utility. So they're trying to run away from the broken Eskom by breaking up the utility, and now they're going to have a transmission company that theoretically is going to raise money to build more lines to accommodate the independent power providers. They're not independent, by the way. The biggest independent power provider is Patrice Motsepe, the president's brother-in-law. So we should just get over naivety. It's the private sector. So the whole thing sounds like a mess, to be honest with you. I don't see why a ministerial department, first of all, should be doing tenders. That should fall under Eskom. Because Eskom's board is responsible. So the minister is going to mandate to Eskom, or the ministry or whoever's in the department, you will put a transmission line here. And what if Eskom comes back and says, this is not in our business entrance, it makes no engineering sense? What's going to happen then? Do they just have to build and get it on with? So we're getting to the crux of why we have load shedding, in my view, which is we have ministers interfering in the executive decision-making of Eskom. They're not supposed to do that. And here we have a memorandum of understanding that is supposed to transfer this to a department that has never had a portfolio before. While we have a crisis, none of this is going to solve load shedding. We need to be very clear on that. These are other political ambitions coming into play.
On those political ambitions that you speak of, at least, Hügo, you speak to some economists and they'll tell you that this is privatization by stealth at Eskom. What is your understanding of that?
Absolutely, they're correct. Let's remember what the purpose of public enterprises was. The public enterprises bill or move was created by P.W. Botha with the purpose of privatizing Eskom. This is already 1989. Okay, and then South Africa's always moved back and forth between privatizing Eskom. If you're going to unbundle a nationalized utility, you are effectively opening the route for privatization. Now, the government's defense will be this will not privatize Eskom, everyone can have a job. First of all, the historical record on this is very poor. The second point is 1/3 of all of Eskom's assets are under what we call unplanned capacity loss factor. They're basically broken down. So if you have a car company with 1/3 of the cars broken, how will this not result in bankruptcy and job losses? So what they're trying to do, this is my view, they're trying to run away from the call, not maintain it, and it is maintainable, okay, and then run into something new and we hand it over to the private sector. This is the classical pathway of privatization at Noam Chomsky's site, where you make sure it doesn't work, you break it, you run Eskom to the ground, and then you get people angry enough where they accept the solution that you propose. And the solution they're proposing at the moment is independent power providers. First of all, they're not independent, they are subcontractors, and the largest subcontractor is the president's brother-in-law, Patrice Motsepe, and on top of that, in the bid window 5 of the renewables, 21 out of 25 of the tenders at one BEE company, which was a company by the name of H1 Holdings. Okay, so it doesn't make sense what they're doing. And then so these are the political ambitions. It's getting the private sector in, and the private sector in this case is not a entrepreneur or a startup company. It's the president's family.
Hügo, at this stage, we are about to throw geysers into this electricity crisis because we are also being told that as South Africans, we need to switch off your geysers, switch off your pool pumps. The other day we spoke to an analyst who said even stoves are contributing to load shedding. And so while South Africans are doing their part, what then should we understand about if you are then saying that this is bigger than all of us? You've got NECOM, I think that is made up of more than 100 people that are taking a look at this situation. So we are throwing all of the resources that we have into this. What is it that you and I as South Africans then can do? Are we then like laying ducks here? That's it?
Well, so what you can do to save money for yourself is, I've always said, you get a solar panel, you can get a heat pump or a solar geyser, you can cook on gas, you can get a time switch for your swimming pool, you can do demand-side management, you can manage your own profile of usage. That'll save you money, okay, in the process as well. But on a national level, we need to solve Eskom. And what we need is, Eskom needs a safety buffer. Okay, and this is from an engineering point saying they need margin, they need fat in the system. And at the moment, they don't have it. So Eskom has units on load, which is around about 30,000 gigawatt when it works well. It's less today. And Eskom cannot get in to do maintenance, because if the minister tells the truth about maintenance, we need to take a unit offload for about 6 months to a year to overhaul the entire fleet. So we need excess capacity, however you're going to get it. And you need, in my view, natural gas to power. Okay, now the car power ship has been cancelled because also of corruption. But South Africa needs to buy gas to power to replace diesel, because at the moment our safety of supply is diesel. It's expensive. Natural gas will cut the diesel bill in 4. That's one of the solutions. Okay, I'm not a gas salesman. Yes, you can add renewables and you can build out transmission lines. I'm not against those things. But if those contracts are going to go to middlemen who are affiliated with the political party, I don't see how that is going to bring down electricity prices or solve the problem. It's a dishonest way of solving the problem. So our solution needs to be to push government for the least cost way to bring capacity on the grid. The other thing they can do is they can try and recover the thermal efficiencies of the coal plants. But when I speak at people who operate Eskom, they are really worried that they don't have an interval to do maintenance. And it's like an old car where you haven't done its service 3 to 5 times and you're still thinking it's going to go. And if we're not going to solve this major issue, like technically or, appoint a proper management at Eskom, thankfully they now have an engineer, and let them run it as an engineering decision, okay, then the load shedding is going to continue. And that's what we need to push for. Sort out this pyramid at the top. Get rid of the Department of Public Enterprises. I would say get rid of Minister of Electricity. Have it all under DMRE, appoint a technocratic leadership at Eskom, and you say to them, you are the best engineers in the country. You solve this. Tell us what you need. Right? But we're not even at that point yet. And I can't understand, because everyone in the country knows for the last 5-6 years we've had rolling blackouts. And it's going to increase.
So what is this, electricity capture?
Yeah, but I would say this, that there's so many factions involved that there's nothing left to steal, that in the process of being greedy, we're not solving any of the crises.
Okay.
That's how I see it at the moment.
Okay. Let's go back to the MOU, and just as we close it, you speak of getting rid of the electricity. Minister, the president of the country perhaps could disagree with you, because he attended a number of imbizos throughout the country last year, and at every single opportunity, he speaks of the golden goose that is yet to lay he speaks of the goose that is yet to lay the golden egg, being the electricity minister, who is working, eat, breathe, sleep. Those are the words that they use, electricity. So the MOU says he will focus full-time on all aspects of the electricity crisis and the work of the National Energy Crisis Committee. And then it comes to the Public Enterprises Minister, and it reads, remain the shareholder representative of Eskom. What does that mean?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know what that means. It seems to me like it's a MOU that is just saying things are going to stay the same. I honestly don't know. Because, again, you still have these two ministers, and that thing doesn't talk about Minister of Mantashe as well. Or what they can do is, let's say we create Minister of Electricity now, which is going to be the same function as the old Minister of Energy. Then all the responsibilities that Minister Mantashe has to be moved to him as well. Okay, including setting policy. Minister Mantashe's department set out the IRP, Integrated Resource Plan, that determines the electricity mix for the coming future. Okay, that department cannot hold Eskom accountable at the moment because it doesn't appoint the board. This is insanity. It's a mess. So, we go back to that thing. I don't know what the role of the Minister of Electricity is. The best I can understand it is he's a CEO for Eskom. And then I ask myself the question, what is the role of the CEO of Eskom? Because he's doing press announcements and he's making investment decisions. That is not the job of a minister, right? So it's an aberration to the system.
Hügo, before we let you go, one Dr. Sean Miller always impresses on us whenever we speak to energy analysts to ask of their connections, because you are with the Truth and Energy, you're a civil engineer with Truth and Energy. Are you affiliated to anybody? Are your views your own?
My views are my own. I don't always speak on behalf of Truth and Energy. Truth and Energy is a loose affiliation of engineers and economists and stakeholders in the energy sector. We basically operate by having a meeting or two every year, every week or so, just to discuss it. Our members have various political views, and we don't always agree on all the energy stuff. I have never taken money from any energy in South Africa, but I do have conflicts, I can argue, from work experience. As far as that relates to my opinions, I don't know. I've worked in almost every energy source. I've worked in coal, I've worked in natural gas, I've worked in offshore wind, and I've worked in nuclear power. Okay, I've not worked in solar, but I have an understanding what's going on over there. But I don't have any shares in any company, and they're welcome to ask my bank account if they want to see it.
I doubt we'll get there. Thank you very much for your truth. But actually, you mentioned the other sources, because also, I do beg your pardon, we are made to understand that we need to diversify. So you take a look at renewable energy in terms of that. You take a look at a country like the United Kingdom, where they are so muted about the promises that they made at previous even climate commissions. So they are asking the question that if we do go into this new route, it's going to be costlier at the end of the road, and who's going to pay that back? Yet South Africa, it would appear that we are so fast on that train. There's railway tracks, even though PRASA is not doing the most. And so how should we understand why our move to sort of align ourselves with developed country outputs?
I regard that as entirely insanity. I think South Africa should draw very few lessons from Europe. Europe has got double the world's electricity prices on average, double the petrol prices, and double the natural gas prices. They can afford it because they're richer countries. South Africa should look towards Asia. Japan is sticking with coal. Vietnam is sticking with coal, so is China. They are adding climatic stuff. Countries have, broadly speaking, 3 priorities in energy. Number 1 is energy security. South Africa doesn't even have it yet because we have load shedding. Then you have energy cost and equity, and then you have environmental concerns, which the first is air quality and the second is decarbonization. Yes, in the process of solving energy security, we can maybe decarbonize a little bit, but that should not even be a priority. Not a single country on the African continent, okay, with the plausible exception of Morocco, is going to reach its 2030 climate goals. We should forget about it. It is not our priority because our priority is poverty and feeding our own people at this stage. My view is this. I make myself a heretic. I make myself very unpopular saying this. I don't care. South Africa has no choice but to stay with coal for another 2 decades. And as we keep the coal fleet the same, we shouldn't build more coal stations. We should just maintain it. We can add renewables and nuclear and natural gas and all the others to the mix. We do what we call an energy addition and then an energy transition. And if you look at what China is doing, you look at what Vietnam is doing, you look at what Japan is doing, it's the exact story I'm saying at the moment. So let's look to Asia rather, because that's the fastest growing economy in the world at the moment. It's economies that are growing the faster. Vietnam is growing at a faster rate than China is doing, and they're sticking with coal. They just said, we don't care what you say about us, our priority is energy security. That's what South Africa should do. We should get out of the mindset, and I'm sorry to say I think it's many a white South African problem sometimes. We should get out of the mindset that we are a developed country. We are a developing country that is surrounded by neighbors that are even poorer than us. And they depend on us. So if we don't have energy security, you're going to see political instability in Zimbabwe and Namibia and the countries surrounding us. So let's solve it. Our first priority should just be getting capacity on the grid, nothing else. And whether that's coal, natural gas, or renewables, I don't care. But that's how we should get to it.